people out there, let's talk about a 4-issue miniseries called Cryptozoic Man. This is collected in a trade paperback format and is published by Dynamite Comics. Have you ever seen the AMC show Comic Book Men? This is written by Brian Johnson and Walter Flanagan of that show. The story centers around Alan Osman. He's been spliced together with mythological creatures of Earth like the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, the Jersey Devil, and a couple others. And you don't exactly find out why at the beginning. This is something that's explained later on. And he's a good guy and he's fighting other monsters, and the big bad in this is a guy who's wearing like a latex kind of fetishy mask where he looks like he's Professor Pig from DC Comics. But it's much more convoluted than that. The story doesn't go in a linear fashion and it goes back and forth several times. I'm not gonna lie and say this is a great comic book because it's very confusing. There's certain points I had to reread the entire thing and I couldn't figure out what the hell is going on. I get that Johnson was trying to make the reader think, so it's not something that's so clearly printed out, but still there are points that I just couldn't figure out what was this. I don't want to say this is the worst comic of all time or anything like that. It's just one of those comic books that doesn't make a lot of sense, and I feel as though had the story progressed in a way where things were explained as it was going on, maybe it would have been a bit better. But there are certain points where I don't understand if this is going on in Alan's head or whether or not this is going on in another dimension, or maybe this is a completely different story altogether. Like there's a point where the Cryptozoic man Alan goes into another dimension and it looks as though this may be a flashback, but it may actually be happening in another dimension and some other story is taking place where you're not really quite sure if he's actually part of the story or whether or not this story is something altogether separate for what the villain is going through. And a lot of this is explained at the end, but still some of it is left in the air where you're thinking, did this actually happen or did it not happen? It is a very unique premise and it does have a solid opening and a solid ending. It just feels as though everything in between was just so messed up. The artwork was great, I will give it that. Walter Flanagan is an incredible artist, and I'm really happy with all the ways that he was able to illustrate everything that was going on. There was a lot of blood and guts, so be warned if you do read this, you will be seeing a lot of that in just about every single issue. And I also like the whole creative idea of having this guy who's a superhero, or at least he's almost a superhero, who has all these mythological creatures attached to him. So it's like he has these extra abilities to him. And then him being a guardian for all of these extra dimensional portals, that is pretty cool too. It also feels as though there's like biblical text being put in for no reason, and I couldn't figure that out. Like it feels as though it's trying to be smart and very intellectual, but it doesn't really come across that way. It just feels as though it's unneeded. I'll just leave it at that. I feel bad because I don't want to say this is a horrible comic. It's not. It's just I didn't quite understand what was trying to be put in place. I feel as though if the story didn't jump back and forth and just stayed on a straight path, maybe the reader would have understood it much more and they probably would have stayed on board for the next one. Which I don't know whether or not there's going to be an ongoing series for this or not, but it did leave it open at the end of this story so that it could continue. So despite everything that I said about this comic, if you are interested in it, it is a Dynamite comic and it's available at dynamite.com. And remember, it's also from the Comic Book Men. And with that, I'll leave you. Thank you guys for watching me in this video. Hopefully, I'll join you with another video very soon. Peace, love, namaste, and I'll see you guys later. Peace. I've seen just about every episode of AMC's Comic Book Men, so I do feel bad that I'm not giving a stellar review for this comic, but still I feel like I was fair about it.